I knew my son-in-law would try to steal my money even before he said his wedding vows. The one thing I didn't expect was that my own daughter would become his accomplice. Dear viewers, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The scent of wilted roses still lingered in the air of our Charleston home when Emily and Nathan returned from their honeymoon. Just 2 days. 2 days after their wedding, and I was already sitting across from them at the mahogany dining table that had belonged to my great-grandfather, feeling my life crumble piece by piece. "Mom, we need to talk about your finances," Emily said, avoiding my gaze. Her voice trembled, but I knew it wasn't from nerves. It was shame. She knew what they were about to propose was wrong. Nathan flashed that disarming smile that had once made my daughter fall for him. Tall, lean, with piercing blue eyes and hair the color of ripe wheat, he looked like a prince from a fairy tale. But I knew the truth about princes. They don't come to save you. They come to conquer. "Mrs. Wilson, Mary," he began, leaning toward me across the table. "Emily and I are really concerned about your future. Managing finances is complicated, especially for a woman your age." A woman your age. I'm 52, and I've run the family business alongside James for the last 20 years, but I held my tongue. "We've prepared some documents," Nathan continued, pulling a thick envelope from a leather briefcase. "A family trust. It'll keep your money safe and simplify things." I took the envelope, my fingers trembling. Not from fear, but from rage. 2 days after the wedding. They hadn't even waited for the ink to dry on the marriage certificate. And who would manage this trust? I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Nathan has an MBA from Wharton," Emily chimed in quickly. "He's the best person to handle investments. And if something happens to me?" I looked straight at my son-in-law. "Emily would be the sole beneficiary," he replied without blinking. "But until then, the funds would be secure under my management." Secure. What a beautiful word to dress up daylight robbery. "I need time to think," I said, pushing the envelope aside. Nathan's face darkened for a moment, but the smile snapped back into place. "Of course, Mary, but don't wait too long. The markets are volatile, and every day's delay could cost you." After they left, I climbed the stairs to James's study on the second floor. The room hadn't been touched since his death a year and a half ago. The leather-bound books, the scent of cigars and lemon wax, his chair facing the window overlooking the garden. Here, surrounded by his things, I felt safe. James had seen this coming. A month before he died of pancreatic cancer, he called his old friend, attorney Richard Stevens, and they spoke behind closed doors for hours. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, assumed they were discussing the will, but now I understood. My husband knew someone would try to take our legacy from me. $5 million. That's what James left me, the result of 20 years of a successful real estate business and savvy investments. Emily knew about the inheritance in vague terms, but not the exact amount. I'd never told anyone the full extent of my wealth, and now I knew why. The next morning, I called Richard. "Mary," his voice carried concern. "How are you? How's Emily settling into married life?" "Richard, I need your help, urgently." An hour later, he sat across from me in the same chair Nathan had occupied the day before. What a difference. Richard Stevens, 63, with gray hair and wise brown eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses, radiated reliability. His family had been friends with ours for 3 generations. "Show me the documents," he said after I recounted the previous day's conversation. I handed him the envelope. Richard studied each page, his expression growing grimmer. Mary, this isn't just a family trust. It's a complete transfer of control over all your assets. Look here. He pointed to fine print in the middle of a page. It says the trustee has full discretion to manage the funds in the family's best interests. And here, he flipped to another section. It states the beneficiary, that's you, can't revoke the trustee's authority without their consent. So, by signing this, I'd be giving him everything? Exactly. And worse, there's a clause stating that if you die, all assets pass to Emily, but under his management until she turns 60. He turned the page. Emily's 24 now. That means he'd control the money for 36 years. I felt the blood drain from my face. Did James warn you about something like this? Richard asked gently. He told me that if anyone tried to take my inheritance, I should go to you and that you'd know what to do. Richard nodded. James was a very foresightful man. He asked me to prepare. Let's call it a defense plan, but it'll require courage, Mary. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to protect what James left me and to protect Emily from that predator. Then listen closely. The plan James had devised with Richard was brilliantly simple. We'd create fake documents showing my inheritance was only $240,000, a sum large enough to pique Nathan's greed, but not so large as to raise suspicions of hidden wealth. The real $5 million would be tucked away in offshore trusts and investments no one would know about. But how do we make him show his true colors? I asked. James thought of that too. We'll create a situation where he tries to access the money illegally, then we catch him red-handed. The next 2 weeks were a frenzy of preparation. Richard crafted fake bank statements, sham investment reports, and even a forged will from James listing the reduced inheritance. Everything looked utterly convincing. I also bought a hidden camera and installed it in the living room, disguised as a decorative photo frame. If Nathan revealed his true self, it would be recorded. Emily called daily, growing more insistent about my decision on the trust. Mom, Nathan says you're losing money every day you delay, she said during one call. Emily, darling, tell me honestly, have you discussed the size of the inheritance your father left with your husband? The pause spoke volumes. He asked, she admitted, said it was important for planning our family finances. I told him I thought Dad left around $300,000. And what did Nathan say? That it'd be enough for a comfortable retirement if invested wisely. I closed my eyes. My brilliant, beautiful daughter had no idea she was being used. Emily, let's meet tomorrow. I'm ready to discuss the trust. The next evening, they arrived together. Emily looked nervous. Nathan, triumphantly confident. He even brought a bottle of expensive French wine to celebrate a new beginning, as he put it. Mary, he said, settling into James's chair, a move that made my fists clench. I'm so glad you've made a sensible decision. I do think I need help with my finances, I replied, letting my voice sound weary and uncertain. But first, I want to show you what we're dealing with. I pulled out a folder with the fake documents, bank statements, investment reports, the will. Nathan took them with barely concealed eagerness. I watched his face shift as he flipped through the pages. First, greedy anticipation, then surprise, then disappointment. This is it? He asked, not looking up from the papers. What do you mean? Emily interjected. $240,000, Nathan said slowly. We expected more. More? I feigned surprise. Nathan, this is a significant sum. James worked his whole life to leave me this. Yes, of course, he recovered quickly. With inflation and all. But you're right, it's good money that needs wise investing. "Where exactly are these funds held?" he asked, studying the bank statements. "Mostly at First National Bank of Charleston, checking accounts, deposits, some bonds." "And access? Do you have online banking?" "Oh, those computers are too complicated for me. I do things the old-fashioned way. Go to the bank or call." Nathan nodded, but I saw a glint in his eyes. He was planning something. "Well then," he said finally, "let's sign the trust documents and I'll get to work optimizing your investments." An hour later, after signing the fake trust documents, the real money, of course, remained safe, I walked them to the door. "Mom," Emily whispered as Nathan headed to the car, "thank you for trusting us. I know how hard it is to let go of control." "Emily?" I took her hand. "Remember, no matter what happens, I'll always love you more than life itself." She gave me a strange look. "Mom, you're talking like you're saying goodbye." "Just take care of yourself, sweetheart." After they left, I checked the hidden camera. Everything had recorded perfectly. The next few days were quiet. Nathan called every morning with reports on new investment opportunities and plans to restructure the portfolio. I played the role of grateful mother-in-law, marveling at his financial wisdom. But I knew he was up to something. Richard checked the fake accounts daily, and so far, no one had tried to access them. The breakthrough came a week later. Emily called, sobbing. "Mom, I need to come over urgently, and can I come alone?" Half an hour later, my daughter sat on the living room couch, her face red from crying. "He thinks I'm asleep," she said, her voice shaking. "Last night I woke up and saw him on his laptop. He was on the phone with someone, and he was laughing, Mom. Laughing and saying, 'The old fool bought it. $240,000 is just the start. I know she's got way more money, it'll just take time to find it.'" My heart broke for my daughter, but at the same time I felt a surge of triumph. He'd shown his true face. "What else did he say?" I asked gently. "He said..." Emily choked back a sob. "He said he only married me for the money, that I'm a naive little fool who believed in a fairy tale romance, and that once he gets access to all your money, he'll divorce me and take half of everything." I hugged my daughter, my rage hardening into cold resolve. "Emily, listen to me carefully. I'm going to tell you something that might seem unbelievable, but you have to trust me." Over the next hour, I told her everything. The true size of the inheritance, James's plan, the fake documents, how we'd set out to catch Nathan in the act. "$5 million?" she whispered. "Dad left $5 million, and I told him he..." "You not know, sweetheart. No one did. That's why your father set this up." "But what do we do now?" "Now we trap him, and you're going to help." The plan was simple. Emily would accidentally leave her tablet at home when they went out to dinner. The tablet would have the bank app open, linked to the fake accounts. If Nathan tried to access the money while she was gone, we'd catch him. "But how will we know if he does it?" Emily asked. "Richard set up a monitoring system. Any attempt to access the accounts will be logged, including the IP address of the device used." 2 days later, the plan was in motion. Emily went to dinner with Nathan, forgetting her tablet on the kitchen counter. I sat in James's study watching through additional hidden cameras Richard had installed around the house. At 10:47 p.m., Nathan returned home alone. "Forgot my wallet," he muttered, passing through the hallway. But instead of heading to the bedroom, he went to the kitchen. I watched on the civil. He picked up Emily's tablet and started tinkering with it. A few minutes later, he smiled. He'd clearly cracked the device's lock. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. "Attempted login to bank account detected. IP matches Emily's home internet." 10 minutes later, Nathan tried to transfer $20,000 to a new account, one he'd evidently opened in his name. The bank blocked the transaction. We'd alerted them in advance about suspected fraud. Nathan tried again, increasing the amount each time. His face reddened with every failed attempt. Finally, he gave up, wiped the tablet, and placed it back where he found it. But it was too late. We had all the evidence. The next morning, 2 people arrived at the house, Richard and a private investigator, Mike Collins, whom we'd hired to document Nathan's actions. When Nathan and Emily arrived for lunch, we were waiting in the living. "Oh," Nathan said, seeing the guests, "I didn't know we'd have company." "Sit down, Nathan," I said coldly. "We need to talk." "Mary, what's going on?" He still tried to play innocent. "Mike, show him the video." The investigator opened a laptop. The screen showed footage from hidden camera. Nathan with Emily's tablet, his attempts to access the accounts, his frustration at the failures. Nathan's face paled, but he tried to stay composed. This is a misunderstanding. I was just checking the account's security, making sure no one could get unauthorized access." "Nathan?" Emily interrupted, her voice quiet but icy. "Enough. I heard your phone call. I know what you said about me, about us." The mask finally fell. Nathan straightened in his chair, his blue eyes turning hard as steel. "So what?" he sneered. "You really thought someone could love you for you? A naive little country girl who's never been past Charleston? The only thing interesting about you is your family's money." Emily flinched as if slapped. "And you," he turned to me, "thought you could outsmart me? I know $240,000 isn't all of it. Your dead husband's company was too successful for that. Where's the rest of the money, you old hag?" "Nathan!" Emily exclaimed. "Shut up!" he snapped at her. "You've done your part. Now either your mommy tells me where the real money is, or I'll sue for my share and get it through lawyers." Richard cleared his throat. "I'm afraid that's impossible, Mr. Blackwood." "What's impossible?" "Suing. You see, under South Carolina law, attempting fraud with marital assets is grounds for annulment, and given the video evidence of your actions—" Nathan leapt to his feet. "You can't do this. I have rights." "What rights does someone who married for fraud have?" I asked, savoring the moment. "Nathan, you made a mistake underestimating the women of the Wilson family. This isn't over," he growled. "I'll find a way to get your money." "No," Emily said, standing. "It's over." "Mike, do you have the annulment papers?" The investigator nodded and handed her a folder. "Sign," Emily said, tossing the documents onto the table in front of Nathan. "Or we turn the video over to the police and you go to jail for attempted fraud." Nathan looked at us all. Me, Emily, Richard, Mike. He knew he was cornered. "How much?" he asked finally. "What?" "How much will you pay me to disappear quietly?" Emily laughed, a bitter, pained sound. "Nothing. You get exactly what you deserve. Nothing." "But we can offer you something else," I added. "We won't press charges if you sign the papers and leave Charleston within a week. Forever." Nathan took the pen. His hand shook, whether from rage or fear, I didn't know. "This isn't over," he whispered as he signed. "I'll be back." "No," I said calmly. "You won't, because Mike will be watching you. If you ever come near my family again, we'll hand all the evidence to the authorities. And I'll send that video of your theft attempts to every financial employer from New York to Los Angeles. You'll never work a decent job again." Nathan threw the pen onto the table and stormed toward the door. "Emily," he paused at the threshold, "you'll regret this. Without me, you're nothing." "Get out," my daughter said quietly but firmly. "Just get out of my life." After he left, we sat in silence for a few minutes. Emily cried, not from grief, but from relief. "Mom," she said finally, "I'm so sorry. I should have believed you." "Sweetheart, you believed the man you loved. There's nothing wrong with that." "But I almost gave him all our money." "No," I hugged her. "You didn't know about the real money. And that $240,000? It was a trap. Fake money to catch a real crook." Emily pulled back, staring at me in shock. "Fake? But the bank statements, the documents, all forged. Richard's very good at this sort of thing." Richard smiled. "Your father was a very foresightful man, Emily. He knew someone might try to use you to get to the family money, and he prepared a defense." "But where's the real money?" "Safe," I said. "In trusts and investments only Richard and I know about. Your father's $5 million are still untouched." Emily sat quietly processing. "$5 million," she repeated finally. "And Nathan would have never gotten it." "Never. Even if our plan failed, the real money was protected. But your father wanted more. He wanted you to see the true face of anyone who'd try to use you. He was protecting me even after he was gone. We both were, and we always will." Emily cried again, but these were tears of gratitude, not grief. "What happens now?" she asked after a while. "Now we live," I said, honestly, with no secrets between us. But life is rarely as simple as we'd like to believe. 3 days after Nathan left Charleston, a man in an expensive suit appeared at our doorstep. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm David Harrison, Mr. Blackwood's attorney," he introduced himself, handing me a business card. My heart sank, but I kept my face impassive. "Mr. Blackwood is no longer part of this family," I said coldly. "I'm afraid he feels otherwise," Harrison replied with an unpleasant smile. "My client claims he was coerced into signing the annulment papers under threats and duress. He's filing a lawsuit to have the annulment declared invalid and to restore his marital rights, including a claim to half the family assets." "That's ridiculous," I said, though fear crept in. "We have video proof of his fraud attempts." "Recordings made without the subject's consent aren't always admissible in court," Harrison countered, "especially if they were obtained through entrapment. My client claims you deliberately set him up to discredit him." I called Richard, and we held an emergency meeting in his office. Emily was pale as a ghost. "Can he do this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Technically, yes, he can try. Nathan's hired a very good lawyer. David Harrison is known for winning hopeless cases. But we have aces up our sleeve." "Like what?" "First, we have recordings of his phone calls where he openly discusses his fraudulent intentions. Mike Collins didn't just work inside the house, he conducted surveillance outside too. Second, we can prove the marriage was entered into under false pretenses from the start." But Harrison said the videos might not be admissible. "The videos aren't our only evidence. Emily heard his phone call. That's witness testimony, and we have something else Nathan doesn't know about." Richard opened a safe and pulled out a sealed envelope. "What's that?" I asked. "James's real will. It includes a clause he added a week before his death. He foresaw the possibility of a lawsuit and included a special provision." He opened the envelope and read aloud, "In the event that any person attempts to access my wife Mary's inheritance through coercion, fraud, or lawsuits based on false claims, all assets shall immediately transfer to the Emily Wilson Charitable Foundation and become inaccessible to any claimants except Emily herself upon reaching the age of 30. Emily gasped. "So if Nathan files the lawsuit..." The money automatically goes to the foundation. Nathan gets nothing, but you won't have access to it for another 6 years either, Richard explained. But how do we prove his lawsuit is based on false claims? I asked. Nathan's going to help us with that. You see, in the last 3 days, he made another mistake. Richard opened his laptop and showed us security footage from the Planters Inn in downtown Charleston. This was recorded last night. Nathan meeting with a woman named Victoria Sterling. Sound familiar? I shook my head, but Emily sat up straight. That's his ex-girlfriend. He told me they broke up a year ago. Not quite. They've been seeing each other the whole time he was courting you and even after the wedding. Mike has photos of their meetings going back 6 months. The screen displayed a series of images. Nathan and a striking brunette in restaurants, hotels, his apartment. Some photos showed they were more than just talking. So he was cheating on me from the start? Emily whispered. More than that, Richard continued. We have a recording of their conversation from last night. Mike planted a listening device. He played the audio. Nathan's voice came through clearly. Victoria, baby, I know the last few months have been tough, but it'll be over soon. My lawyer says we can sue for a few million from the old witch. A few million? A surprised female voice replied. You said they only had 200,000. That's what they wanted me to think, but they've got way more. James Wilson was no fool. He probably hid the real fortune in offshore accounts or trusts. Once I get access to the financial records through the lawsuit, I'll find it all. What about Emily? What about her? The naive little fool played her part. Once I get the money, I'll divorce her and you and I are off to Europe. But if you never planned to build a life with her? Victoria, I married her for the money. The money you and I are going to spend. Love's got nothing to do with it. The recording ended. Emily sat motionless, tears streaming down her face. We now have irrefutable evidence that the marriage was entered into under false pretenses, Richard said. This not only validates the annulment, but proves any lawsuit Nathan files is fraudulent. But what if the judge believes him? I asked. Then James's will kicks in. The money goes to the foundation and Nathan gets nothing. And I lose access for 6 years, Emily added sadly. Not entirely. The foundation's income will be available to you, and when you turn 30, you'll gain full control of the capital. It's not ideal, but James prioritized safety over convenience. That evening, Emily and I sat in the garden behind the house, among the roses James had planted. The night air in Charleston was thick with the scent of magnolias and jasmine. Mom, Emily said quietly, I feel so stupid. Why? I believed him, believed in his love, our future, and he just used me. Emily, listen to me, I turned to her. You're not at fault for having a kind heart. You're not at fault for being capable of love. The fault lies with the person who abused your trust. But I should have seen the signs. His questions about money, the rush with the trust. Sweetheart, con artists succeed because they're good at pretending. Nathan's a professional. He studied us, found our weaknesses, and exploited them. Do you think Dad really foresaw this? I thought about this often over the last 1.5 years of widowhood. Your father was a wise man. He built a successful business from scratch, and that takes understanding people. He knew big money attracts more than just good intentions. But why didn't he tell me about the plan? Because if you'd known, you wouldn't have acted naturally. Nathan would have sensed something was off. We sat in silence, listening to the crickets and the distant sound of the surf. Charleston never truly sleeps. It just slows down, like an old clock before dawn. Mom, what if... What if no one else wants to be with me because of the money? Emily, the right person will love you not for the money or despite it. They'll love you for who you are. And if I can't trust anyone again, then we'll deal with that together. The next morning, Harrison summoned us to court. The hearing was set for the following week. Pretty fast, Richard remarked. Too fast, I agreed. Something's not right. We were right. 3 days before the hearing, Mike Collins called with troubling news. Mrs. Wilson, we've got a problem. Nathan's hired a private investigation firm from Atlanta. They're digging into your finances. But the real money is hidden. Yes, but they might find traces. Bank transfers, tax returns, your late husband's company records. If they're persistent enough, how much time do we have? 3 days, maybe a week before they find something. I called Richard. We need to act fast, he said. I'm activating the wills clause. What does that mean? It means the money formally transfers to the Foundation's trust as of now. Even if the detectives find traces of the original assets, they're no longer legally yours or Emily's. And if Nathan drops the lawsuit, then in a month, the money reverts to the original terms of the will. But I doubt he'll back down. He's in too deep. On the day of the hearing, I woke at 5 a.m. from a nightmare. I dreamed Nathan took not just the money, but the house, Emily, and even James's memory. I got up, showered, and put on my best black suit, the one I wore to James's funeral, war paint for the final battle. Emily was at the kitchen table picking at her breakfast. Nervous? I asked. Terrified, she tried to joke, but her voice shook. Remember, whatever happens, we're family. Nothing changes that. The Charleston courthouse loomed grand and slightly ominous in the morning light. Emily and I climbed the marble steps holding hands. Nathan was already in the courtroom with his lawyer. He looked confident, almost triumphant. Beside him sat Victoria from the photos, beautiful, elegant, with a predatory gaze. Judge Margaret O'Connor, a woman in her 60s with sharp gray eyes and a reputation for impartiality, studied the documents before starting the hearing. Mr. Harrison, state your client's position, she said. Harrison stood and launched into a speech about how poor Nathan was coerced into signing the annulment papers under threats and duress. He spoke of an elderly woman obsessed with paranoia and an innocent young wife manipulated by her mother. I clenched my fists, listening to the lies. Then Richard stood. Your Honor, allow me to present evidence of Mr. Blackwood's true motives. He played the audio of Nathan's conversation with Victoria. Nathan's voice filled the courtroom. I married her for the money. Naive little fool. I'll divorce her once I get the money. Nathan's face paled, but he quickly regained composure. Your Honor, Harrison interjected, that recording was made illegally without my client's consent. It was made in a public place, Richard countered, in a hotel where there's no expectation of privacy. The judge nodded. Continue, Mr. Stevens. Richard presented the photos of Nathan's meetings with Victoria, bank records showing his attempts to access the accounts, and the surveillance footage. All this evidence points to Mr. Blackwood marrying Miss Wilson with the sole intent of seizing the family's finances, Richard concluded. Harrison tried to counter. Your Honor, my client admits to mistakes, but that doesn't negate the fact that the marriage was legally entered into, and he's entitled to a fair consideration of property matters. What property does your client refer to? The judge asked. The Wilson family assets, including the inheritance from Mrs. Wilson's late husband. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Wilson, are you prepared to provide full disclosure of your assets? I stood, my heart pounding. Your Honor, Per my late husband's will, in the event of a lawsuit based on fraud or false claims, all assets automatically transfer to a charitable foundation. What? Nathan shouted, leaping up. Mr. Blackwood, sit down, the judge said sternly. Richard presented James's original will with the relevant clause. As you can see, Your Honor, the late Mr. Wilson foresaw this possibility. Per this document, since Mr. Blackwood filed a lawsuit to access assets through fraud, all funds have already been transferred to the Emily Wilson Charitable Foundation. The judge studied the document. This means the subject of the lawsuit no longer exists. The assets Mr. Blackwood claims are legally inaccessible to him or Mrs. Wilson. Nathan turned white as a sheet. But that's impossible. They can't just hide the money. Mr. Blackwood, the judge said coldly, the late Mr. Wilson had every right to dispose of his property as he saw fit, including setting conditions for its transfer to charity. Harrison tried to find a loophole. Your Honor, the will was drafted before my client's marriage. Perhaps the deceased would have changed his mind. Mr. Harrison, the judge interrupted. The will is dated a week before Mr. Wilson's death. By then, your client was already involved with his daughter. Moreover, the evidence clearly shows Mr. Blackwood's motives were fraudulent from the start. She struck her gavel. The lawsuit is dismissed. The annulment stands. Mr. Blackwood has no claim to the Wilson family assets. Nathan lunged toward our table. You think you've outplayed me? He hissed. This isn't over. Mr. Blackwood, the judge called. One more word, and I'll have you arrested for contempt of court. Security escorted him out. Victoria followed, shooting us a venomous look. After the hearing, Emily, Richard, and I went to a cafe near the courthouse. I ordered coffee, but my hands shook so much I couldn't lift the cup. Is it over? Emily asked. Yes, Richard said. Nathan could try and appeal, but he has no chance. The evidence is too strong. And the money? In a month, if no one contests the ruling, the assets revert to the original terms of the will. Back to you, Mary. So we won? Emily asked. We survived, I corrected. But at what cost? Emily took my hand. Mom, I know what you're thinking, that I've lost faith in love, that I'll never trust again. But that's not true. Really? Nathan showed me what a lie looks like. Now I'll recognize the truth when I see it. We sat quietly, watching passers-by through the cafe window. Charleston's life went on. Tourists snapping photos of historic buildings, locals rushing about, children playing in squares. You know what's the worst part? Emily said suddenly. What? That some part of me still remembers how he held my hand on our wedding day, how he said he loved me. Even knowing it was a lie, some part of me misses the person he pretended to be. I nodded. I understood that feeling better than I wanted to. It's okay, sweetheart. You're not missing him. You're missing the dream of who he could have been. A week after the hearing, Mike Collins came by with an update. Nathan and Victoria left the state, he said. My sources say they're headed to California. And then what? I recommend leaving them alone. Nathan's out of money for lawyers, and his reputation in financial circles is ruined. The video of his theft attempts has already spread through professional networks. So the threat's gone? Completely. But I'd stay cautious for a few months. People like Nathan don't give up easily. After Mike left, I went to James's study. Sitting in his chair, I felt true relief for the first time in a year and a half. You were right, I said to his portrait on the wall. You thought of everything. He didn't answer, of course, but I could have sworn his smile in the photo grew a little warmer. A month later, the money returned to my control, as planned. Emily took a job at a local art gallery. She'd always loved painting, but Nathan had discouraged her from pursuing a frivolous career. "Now I'll do what I want, not what someone else thinks is right," she said over dinner. "And what do you want?" I asked. "Travel, study art, maybe open my own gallery, and—" She hesitated. "And what?" "I want to learn to trust people again. Not everyone, but those who deserve it." We sat on the porch watching the sunset over Charleston Harbor. The air was thick with jasmine and salt. "Mom, what'll you do with the money?" Emily asked. "I don't know. Maybe I'll start that charitable foundation your father mentioned. A real one, not just a safeguard." "That's a good idea. Dad would have approved." "What about you running it? When you're ready, of course." Emily smiled, her first truly happy smile in months. "I'd like that, but on one condition." "What's that?" "No secrets between us, ever." "Promise," I said, offering my hand. "Promise," she echoed, shaking it. 2 years later, the James and Emily Wilson Foundation became one of South Carolina's largest charities, helping young women access education and protection from domestic abuse. Emily fell in love with a local museum curator, a quiet, thoughtful man named Daniel who knew nothing about our money when they met. When she told him the truth, he just shrugged and said, "Money doesn't make a person good or bad. It's what you do with it that matters." As for Nathan, we never heard from him again. Last we knew, he was selling cars somewhere in Nevada. Victoria left him when she realized there'd be no money. Today, I sit in the garden James planted, thinking about legacy. Not the money, the real legacy. James didn't just leave me financial security. He left me wisdom, the understanding that a person's true worth isn't measured by bank accounts. He left me strength, the ability to protect myself and my family from those who'd use us. But most importantly, he left me love. Not the fake love Nathan used to deceive Emily, but the real kind. The kind that asks for nothing in return, that protects and supports even after death. Emily knows the difference now. She's seen both lies and truth, and that knowledge has made her stronger, wiser, capable of real love. Maybe that's James Wilson's true legacy, not the money he amassed, but the wisdom he passed on, the ability to see people's true intentions, the strength to protect those you love, and the understanding that real wealth isn't numbers in a bank, it's the people who love you honestly. The sun sets over Charleston Harbor, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. Somewhere in the house, Emily is cooking dinner for the 3 of us, her, me, and Daniel. The smell of spices and fresh baked bread drifts into the garden, mingling with the scent of roses. I smile, warmth spreading in my chest. Nathan is gone, leaving only lessons that made us stronger. Emily has found herself, and I've found new purpose in supporting the foundation that carries her father's name. The next morning, I wake early and walk through the garden. I spot James's old journal tucked among his favorite books in the gazebo. Opening it, I find his final entry, written the day before he died. "Mary, if you're reading this, you've made it through. You were always my strength. Now that strength is yours. Protect our daughter and live in a way that would make me proud." Tears stream down my face, but I smile. His words are a final gift, a reminder that his love and faith in me endure. I show the entry to Emily over breakfast. She reads it, her eyes glistening, but she nods with resolve. "We'll live in a way that makes him proud," she says. We embrace knowing Hurricane lies not just recovery, but a new chapter filled with hope and strength. Days pass and the foundation thrives. Emily and I organize events, raising awareness for the issues we faced. Daniel supports her, their relationship built on mutual respect, free of greed. One day, Emily confesses she wants children, and I see in her eyes a dream of a future unburdened by the past. Another year goes by. The foundation celebrates its first anniversary with a grand party in the garden. Guests, women we've helped, their families, volunteers, fill the space. Emily gives a speech about how her father's love and wisdom saved us. I sit beside her, holding James's photo, feeling his presence among us. That evening, as the guests leave, I linger in the garden alone. The stars over Charleston shine brighter than ever. I whisper into the night, "Thank you, James. We made it." And in that moment, I know the true legacy isn't the money. It's the family we protected and the love that binds us. That is my victory. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you won't miss new exciting stories. See you tomorrow.